if Impending Doom or Brooke were to call me right now and be like, dude, you're playing a show with us, I would play that show. And we couldn't be completely different in our ideologies, but we all believe in something and we're both convicted and we both like to write hit music. So yeah, that would probably be the number one band to answer that question. If there was a band that I would want to play with again, it would be Impending Doom.
Real quick before getting into today's episode, just wanted to shout out a few quick things. First of all, we have a Patreon. For as low as $1.50 a month, you can get early access to these episodes as well as your name in the credits. And with the $5 tier, you can gain access to member-only channels in our Discord server, as well as be a part of the group calls that Yan and I do every second Friday. Secondly, we have merch. 2 designs that we absolutely love. You can find those over at indiemerchstore.com. And last but not least, we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, see these as they happen. We do those every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST. Yeah, that's it. Links to everything I just mentioned will be in the description, along with links to our Discord server and our other socials. That's it. That's all I got to plug. Enjoy the episode. Nick, my man, how are we doing? Welcome to the show, man.
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
In all sincerity, it is really cool to get to talk to you as we're kind of talking off stream real quick. I do think that Misericordiam is one of those kind of cult classic bands that never really got as much praise as they should in my mind, but in the underground scene of what we do, you know, from us talking to people every single week about, you know, deathcore and MySpace and all this stuff, Misericordiam gets brought up an ungodly amount. So, you know, happy to get it to dig into all that.
Yeah, it blows my mind, man. Hearing this stuff and seeing this shit, it's crazy, you know, especially looking back from when I was 17 years old and, you know, now seeing that people give a fuck. It's wild to me.
The wild part too is that you would think that it's older people, right? But it's also the younger generation who really dig in and find out about all those bands, you know? So to me, at least for me, it's like, that's the mind blowing part. Like they're going to bring up, you know, OG bands, you know, or they love all the, and, you know, we could be their parents maybe, you know, so that's kind of
some 17-year-old kid is bringing up Misericordiam and I'm like, you weren't even born, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, you guys could probably fill me in on this. You know, I'm at the stage of my life now where I'm kind of just like recycling music, right, that I used to listen to. Every so often I'll grab a band like, oh, that's sick as fuck. But you know, apparently, you know, this is all having a resurgence. So, you know, I guess it does make sense that, you know, younger people would stumble upon the band or, you know, those groups of bands and like it, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like it's such a different era for them. Like you know, they see how it was, and like we literally had one form of social media. You know, they have like 50 platforms that nowadays. Sure. Like they could have put. They see us, and it was just like we had to figure out HTML codes and stuff. So I think for them, it's like it's this whole thing of just like what was that, you know? So they dig in and you know, that's why we called it MySpace Deathcore, the revival. But it's blowing my mind that they understand it as well as they're understanding it. You know, it's one thing to think, oh, I was cool. It's another thing to be able to nail the sound and really understand what it was. That's the part that's completely blowing my mind also.
Sure. Yeah. You know, and I wonder if the fundamental difference between, you know, the bands that were doing it in the early 2000s is, you know, we were kind of just, it kind of came organically, right? We're listening to a whole bunch of different music. You know, I guess like probably with the resurgence, they're probably listening to bands that play that style and then drawing influence from that, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? I just want people to be able to create, you know, and so whatever that is, that's beautiful. But maybe that might be the big difference, you know? And you know what, as far as them capturing the sound, you know, maybe they don't have to. You know what I mean? Maybe they'll bring something new to it. You know, and that's kind of what I look for. Where are the fucking outliers? That's what I want.
I think that's what's gonna. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I think that's usually what happens at the very beginning. It's more of a. I wouldn't say like they don't copy or anything, but like it's going to be close to what it was. But over
Sure.
time, usually they each kind of like they understand what they want and then they create something. And hopefully this time, without throwing shade, it won't turn into all gent. That would be great if it doesn't do that. But you know, that being said, I think it's the goal of each band to have their very own. That's the goal, to have your own sound. So I'm sure it's in a couple of years we're going to talk about that, and many bands are just, you know, they're going to have their own thing. Is what I'm.
Yeah, to your point, you know, I'm kind of like a latecomer to Saul, which I guess is just another word for gent, right? Which to me, I'm just going to listen to Meshuggah. So, you know, it's like, you know, not hating on any bands that, you know, do polyrhythms or stuff like that. You know, it's just, for me, it's like there's Meshuggah and then there's everything else.
I can see that though, you know, because like when something is as popular as that, there's always people who kind of created it or is at the top of it. So like the thing is, if you do something that's been done, you're kind of in the shadow of something automatically type thing. You know, that's just what's going to happen. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people. I'm making jokes about gent, you know, like I don't, it was fine, but it was just kind of funny because around, I don't remember, but like 2012, maybe 2013, there was like a shift and all like everything sounded like that.
Well, deathcore bands started sounding like that, so that was our problem with it.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
That was so. That's or it's just us being old. That could be that as well. You know, just complaining for stuff like that. That would be possible. I would accept that. But no, I just like when something. The example I give very often is a band like Immure back then. People would like trash talk them and stuff like that, but they were doing at least it was Immure. You would hear a sound, and it's freaking Immure, you know. Early Veil of Maya was like, oh, that's early, you know. So that's what I love when I hear something. I'm like, it's them. That's kind of where, you know. So I'm sure we're gonna see that in the revival. That's what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. You know, I mean, maybe takes people, you know, a couple bands or a couple albums to kind of figure out, you know, what they want to do and then perfect it, and then usually what comes of it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes sense too, you know, because like a band, each artist as well, right? Like it's like the band figuring out stuff, but also you as an artist, no matter what your instrument is or vocal, it's the same thing. You need to figure out stuff. So it's kind of this whole thing together. So it does make sense that over time you finally get everything. So
there definitely is something to, you know, to what you alluded to earlier though, of like, you know, there's always going to be that discrepancy of, you know, bands from like 2005 weren't based off of other deathcore bands because deathcore didn't exist, right? So it was other influences, and it was a blend of these other kinds of bands and bringing it together, right? Where I feel like when there's like a revival of sorts of any of these things, they're not necessarily going through the same route to get to where they're getting to. It's more like, oh, we really fuck with, let's say, Suicide Silence, let's try to sound like them. But Suicide Silence weren't influenced by deathcore. It was like these other things, and that's what made Suicide Silence. So it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's a cheat code if anything, but you know, it's funny to think about just because it comes from such a different place ultimately.
Sure, you know, I mean, and I think, you know, I think there's a little bit of you know, I don't know how to put this, like positive gamemanship that was happening back then. You know, we're kind of influenced by our contemporaries. You know what I mean? Not trying to copy, but like, oh fuck, they did something like that. Like, what would our version of that be like, right? You know, and I think, and that's a goal, right? And so I think the goal has shifted. I think from at least what I'm hearing, right, is fans now are trying to, how fucking heavy can we get, right?
Yeah.
How long can the break be in the breakdown? You know, can I do a snare hit every 17 years, right? Am I going to add reverb to it? You know, am I going to make the vocals as inhuman as possible? Am I going to have fuck guitars? We're just going to use three basses. You know what I mean? And like, it's just like, you know, I think that's the goal now, which is fine, you know, but I think that's at least what I'm seeing. How far can these people push it? And that's dope. Let them.
I see that, and I think in the extreme, I think the goal, and not to sound negative, I think you're right, and I think they're looking for a moment specifically because all of the social medias at the moment is based on that. It's like you want this moment that everybody shares, and if you go to the extreme and you go all out and you do something that's so over the top, well, you have more chances for that. I'm not saying every band is that. I'm sure a lot of bands it's just like let's go heavy, but I'm pretty sure there's a part of those just like, I mean, yeah, it's good.
Well,
People are good. So
you know, I mean, I think, I think you're right, right? I think people are looking for that moment, right? But then, you know, I have to like remove myself from it and look at from an outside perspective and say, well, this is the technology that's been available to them this entire time,
yep.
right? And so I try not to, you know, fault these people, right? Because this is the culture that they come up with. I might have words about it. I might have opinions about it, right? Especially, you know, coming from the early 2000s, you know, getting something filmed was really next to impossible. If you did get a live performance taped, it was usually shit. And so, you know, and usually those moments that you're talking about just happen by happenstance. And most times you're like, fuck, I really wish that wouldn't have gotten on camera. But hey, you know, here we are. Right. And so, you know, it's flip flopped. You know, people are trying to get seen as opposed to, I guess, if it happens, it happens.
I like your perspective though, because it's true. I mean, like if we would have been born, I mean, if we would be at their place, we maybe would try to do these things. Like it's just that's the culture behind it, like you said. Like why not, right? Because I'm sure some people are trying to get it and they get it, and and then it works. So I mean, but back then I think it was more about just I don't think now I feel like there's maybe more strategy in it involved perhaps in
Sure.
terms of just like, oh, we're gonna do this and this, as opposed to, at least from the outside, what I saw as a kid was more like it felt like a feeling thing. We love that music, let's just do it, let's just, oh, what if we
Sure.
do this, let's just try it. I feel like it was more of an instinctual
Yeah.
thing, maybe not to
You
throw
know,
shade, but that's
well, so there's always been bands out there, especially when I was coming up, that treated the band like a business, right? This is going to be our image. This is going to be our sound. And it was mostly just PR. I mean, granted, they were great musicians as well, but they didn't shy away from this. This was their goal, right? But I would say that, you know, to what you were saying just a second ago, is that I guess a good word is just more organic, just a bunch of people getting together, writing music. And then if the deal came, all right. If the tour came, all right. You know, if that moment came on camera, all right. But that was all secondary to just people getting together, having a good time, and writing music. And again, I've already had the many stages of being the grumpy old man and being the hater, and I've had some time to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at what technology has done, especially with giving people the ability to replace the option of a 9 to 5, why wouldn't these bands just go all out and just try to make it their one thing and make it big, So, and who knows what I would have done if my generation was now.
Makes a lot of sense, actually. Like as you said, we can, it's not things have just changed. That's a big. I had this many times. I'm realizing I'm like, dude, you're exactly like your parents back then when internet started. That's true though. That's kind of what happens every single time. Each generation, we think that what we had maybe was better in some ways and stuff, but it's been like that since forever. Grandparents would be like that, people before that would feel like things are changing and this maybe, but there's nostalgia. I'm aware nostalgia is a really powerful thing, but it comes down to there's good stuff in our generation. There's good stuff in theirs. There was bad stuff in ours. There's
Sure.
bad stuff in there. It comes down to that in general, and us just being older. I think.
I do have to point out though that I vividly remember, even way back in the day, every vocalist wanted to be the lowest vocalist in the world. Everyone wanted to go lower than Phil Bozeman. And for a while it was like,
do.
oh, Beneath the Massacre did that crazy slow fucking breakdown. Everyone was trying to do an even slower breakdown and stuff like that. So I just at least give that sort of perspective of like the going for extremes thing, I think is just intrinsically a part of going super fast, going super low, going super high, whatever it is. I think it's just intrinsically always been a part of like extreme music in general. It just comes out, I guess, in different ways now, maybe because of social media and stuff, but I think that's always kind of been a thing.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's the same issues, presenting themselves just in different ways, man. I got an 11-year-old. He's my oldest son, Grayson. He has his own noise project. It's insane, by the way, and it's not because he's my son. It's just what he spends 15 hours a day on. And I had this talk with him, where I kind of had, well, I have to be the parent, right? I'm like, listen, once you put something out there, man, it's there forever. Listen to me, right? 17-year-old me, could not, figure that out. You could not tell me anything that I would listen to, right? But as someone who's been there, right, it's so yeah, so I feel you guys. Like every generation that comes before another one either thinks that they did it the best or did it right or has some sort of wisdom that they can bestow, but if you think about it, these kids are us, right? Just at a different age. That we're in them, they're in us, and so they're probably going to listen about as much as we did, and they'll figure it out, But I think really all that matters is the fact that, this type of music still has a place and people still give a shit. If you were to tell me at 17 that I'd be doing this podcast, or I would hear people talk about my band, or what all the things that they've said, I'd say you're a fucking liar. I just couldn't foresee it.
For sure. I mean, and it goes for us as well. Like, if you would have told me, as much as I love deathcore and everything, but you would have told me, dude, in 2025, there is going to be a resurgence of what you're hearing right now with younger people. Not only that, but deathcore is going to be even more popular. I would have responded, no, that won't. That's not what's gonna happen. I'm really sorry. I don't I'm fine with it, but I don't think so. So just that in itself is incredible, and it's blowing my mind how it's truly always a circle thing, like fashion. Basically, it comes back to it. It hurts me a little bit to realize that. Now we're the equivalent of when our parents would talk about the 70s and the 80s, and now it's us with the early 2000s. It's kind of blowing my mind. Yeah. We had this interview, I think last week, whatever, and the kid had like a poster of Meteora by Linkin Park, and I realized that it's the equivalent of me being young maybe and having like a Nirvana poster on my wall or something, and I was like, oh, we're there. That's when we arrive.
It comes quick.
So the funny thing is, you're a teenager, you feel like you understood everything, and and the more you grew up, the more you're like, my parents were pretty much right all along on many, you relate more and more, at least for me, like I relate more and more about basically everything they were telling me. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 40 this year, and about 3 times a week I'm just yelling fuck because I realize that my dad was right once again. I go, holy shit. I can't believe this. This is just insane to me, and so, I made out all right, and I think these kids will too.
I mean, look, while we're talking about all the youth, we got to dabble into some of your youth. We got to get some history going here. I'd be curious to kind of go back in time with you, and if you could kind of lay the groundworks for, I guess, getting into music, heavy music specifically, getting into metal
Sure.
and all that stuff, just so we can kind of pave a some sort of a story towards Misericordiam ultimately.
Sure. So, my older brother, I probably was 9 years old, and I remember just one time he's like, "Hey Nick, come here for a second. I want to show you something." And he fucking turned on um, "Once Upon the Cross" from Deicide, and he goes, "You hear that?" I go, "What?" He goes, "You hear that?" And he's doing like this. He goes, "That's double bass." And then he showed me Fear Factory, and then he showed me Sepultura, and that was, really the kind of like my foundation, right? So um, I wasn't listening to Black Sabbath or Iron Maiden. You know, my one of my other sisters, she was heavily into like grunge scene. Alice in Chains. So I was kind of getting all that. And so, I had my little Slipknot phase and Deftones phase. Like that was kind of me, like figuring some things out, but always had this heavier stuff I was listening to. I'd say about ninth grade, I met some crust punks, and my life kind of, just kind of went this direction, and that led me, to meet, my buddy, Stephen Hartlauer, his older brother Jesse Hartlauer. They told me about Coalesce. They told me about Converge. And then I'd say probably around 2001, I went to my first hardcore show. And so it was about that time that I realized, I wanted to write music, except for the fact I have no fucking talent, right? So what am I going to do, right? I had gotten the Fender guitar, for Christmas years before that was never used. So I had this fucking PV amp. And, when I decided that I wanted to be in a band, I first started just researching bands. There was this thing called Robotic Empire, which had like early red chord releases. So like I was getting, 7 inches. I was getting, stickers. I was getting shirts. I was just consuming myself with music. And so I have this, so right around this time I have this PV amp, and I got a microphone and I plugged it in there, and I started practicing vocals to Earth Crisis. So that was my introduction into singing was essentially singing Earth Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I got the feel of like the ethos of hardcore, right? But I felt it was missing something, right? And that was the heaviness of the music that my brother showed me when I was younger.
You had already gotten a taste of the double bass.
Yeah, and so I kind of had an idea in my head of what I wanted my music to sound like, and it took a couple bands. I had this high school band called As This Day Dies, right? And that went into Without Prayer, and that was heavily like just anti-religious. And you thought I said crazy shit in Misericordiam. I was saying worse shit then. And then
I just gotta say, I love, and this is, I'm assuming not religious. I love the song name, "Life's Too Short and So Am I."
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely get in the song titles, you know what I mean? But I figured if I'm going to be serious in lyrics, the entire time, I might as well, be comical as well in some respects. So I mean, my brother, and then me just practicing, by myself, the hardcore records, specifically Earth Crisis, is kind of what got me on this path. And then I just met people, people I went to high school with, and friends of friends, and that's how we got to Misericordiam.
How does like gutturals come into the picture? Because I'm assuming you're listening to maybe some music that have gutturals and stuff, but Earth Crisis, that's not that. So how does that kind of come into the picture?
Well, here's a band that I don't hear in the conversation at all, and it actually blows my mind. And it's if you want to know like why I do Inhale's It's because of Circle of Dead Children.
Hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
Okay, so if anyone needed that answered, that is exactly 110% the reason why I would do the patterns I would do, especially like on a thin line, right? Yeah, they are directly influential and responsible for me singing the way I do, and I don't think they get enough credit. I'll never understand why.
That's so sick. Yeah, it's because also the ENL thing, like it's somehow so controversial, like and why, by the way, like I know we have these conversations so often, but like they're my favorite personally still to this day. Like that's what I do, that's what I love hearing. Always been a fan of Waking the Cadaver. I'm sure you're familiar with Waking, but like
Yeah.
and that's what they do, and it's like, to me, it was always, if it sounds cool and it fits the music, who cares about the way it's done? You know what I mean? But again, like it's more complex than that, I think, for people. But always thought they sounded badass, so I don't understand.
I guess I would make the same argument for for people who are now classically training themselves to do this stuff. You know what I mean? There is no methods, right, that I follow. There is no breathing techniques. There's nothing. It's just do it until it sounds good, until you're happy with it, and that's what you go with.
And you're gonna sound like yourself by doing that, as opposed to sometimes, because if you want to sound like something, you're probably going to sound like something, but if you figure out yourself and you do, you're going to end up having your own sound, which I think is the goal.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse. For better or for worse.
I think you hit a good point. For me to step on my soapbox here for a second, I mean, to any young vocalists out there, don't sound like anybody else. Sound like yourself. You know what I mean? Obviously, you have influences for sure. You know what I mean? But be happy with what you have to offer the world. You know what I mean? It's someone has everything, and you don't know until you fucking try.
100%. Like, and I think it applies to bands, period. I think, for that matter, like period, like applies to any art you do or whatever. Like, figure it out yourself. Like you can be influenced and inspired. That's great, actually, and it's awesome. You can even honor that, I think. But to just be some version of something. I don't think. I didn't want to cut you off in your point, but I just thought every time I hear NLs or stuff, I'm always like, because that's what I do and I love it. So I had, and knew probably right away that I would definitely try.
Just a quick second to talk about the sponsor of today's episode, Indie Merch Store. We all know it's all kinds of hot outside right now, but at least you can look cool while melting. Indie Merch Store has a brand new drop of tank tops, 35 bands with some crucial designs. Amongst all of these, they teamed up with Black Market Activities and Unique Leader Records to bring you some classics from the vault. We got some old classics like Deadwater Drowning, Dance Club Massacre, Ed Gain, The Red Chord, as well as some more current bands like Shadow of Intent, Disembodied Tyrant, Crown and Magnetar, and so much more. A bunch of these designs are available on 3 different color tank tops. It's an awesome drop. All of this over at indiemerchstore.com. You can use code Brutality at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. This applies to the brand new tank tops as well. So again, code Brutality at checkout for 10% off. A big thank you to Indie Merch Store for sponsoring this episode. Brutality Podcast is proud to be sponsoring our homies in Peacemaker and I Saw God on their current Bring Back the Brutal Tour 2025. Both bands are currently trekking across the US for the next couple of weeks. So far, the shows have been going off, so don't miss out. Remaining dates include California, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. So if you're in any one of those states, do check out the link in the description for ticket info and the full lineups. Now back to the show. I guess just strictly the word Deathcore and Misericordiam have always been kind of a a thing, right? Because it's like it's kind of brutal death metal, but it's got breakdowns, but it's like death metal is shit. But and then there's the inhale part of it, which isn't necessarily a deathcore thing, but it heavily got roped in with, you know, what was typically deathcore. So and you guys had kind of a bit of a shift of style over the years as well. So it's like how do you see like deathcore in general, and maybe how was it perceived for you guys? Because I feel like Misericordiam was probably one of those bands that kind of was eating shit on both sides, you know?
Sure. So so a few things, real quick with this, the deathcore revival. And I don't know if this is just other areas of music, but while it was happening, like in real time in the early 2000s, I wouldn't say there was a deathcore scene. Okay, at least I wasn't seeing it, right? I'm playing mixed bills all the time with bands that all sound different most nights. And, you know, I don't know if, there was like this little area etched out strictly for deathcore. Okay. Because from my recollection, I was playing with all different sorts of bands. Now, as far as like deathcore goes, as far as the label for Misericoriam, that was bestowed on us. It was not really something that we ever came out and said, yeah, this is what we are. Me personally, right? It's all hardcore to me. Okay. When I started going to shows, it was a metalhead kid, a ska kid, just and a whole array of music, the same 30 people going to shows all the time, right? To me, that's hardcore. So, if you were to ask, our drummer, Phil, he just chooses to say, we play extreme music. Now, that's not because we don't want any association with either camp. It's just, it's not really something, I mean, personally, that I give much thought to. I knew that I just wanted to write heavy music. If people need to classify it as something for them to understand it or like it, whatever, that's fine. Like I have no problem with it. And as far as, like getting shit from both ends, I think by the time we arrived, all that fighting shit had already weeded itself out. Okay. And this is probably about 3 to 4 years before, Misericordiam even started, where, hardcore kids are getting in fights with metalhead kids and vice versa. By the time, Misericordiam was up and running, I think we got, at least from my perspective, love from everybody because, we play one show with Donnybrook and then I played a show with Devourment. It was all great. It was all a great time. So, I understand as someone who has a degree in sociology that people need labels and it's human nature to box people into things. And, that's fine. Let them, I'm just here to make music.
Yeah, it's just even, I was going back on some old sites and stuff, I was scoping out like your last.fm page, and it was like riddled with this kind of battle of like, oh, I'll never listen to these guys because they're deathcore, like that sort of like talk, so I guess I was mostly wondering if that was something that was felt, but if you're going out to shows and you're playing a hardcore show and then you're playing a death metal show and it's all the same and it doesn't, you don't feel that, then at that point, it's just internet noise, which, it's probably become more of a thing now, but I don't know, that's cool. That's cool in that sense. If you guys were able to play both sides and the people live it didn't bother them,
Yeah, no, I mean, I never experienced anything where, we got any sort of hatred from either camp. I mean, I came up through the hardcore scene. I love my scene out here. What started with, Stu Folsom from Spirit World has now been handed over to Dustin from Black Path. He's I mean, done an amazing job with our scene. Obviously, our scene's had, 10 generations cycle through since the last time I've been through it, but it's alive and well, it's safe. And I'm happy to see how it's grown.
Yeah, because it's weird because like the whole deathcore thing, it was controversial. I think in the very beginning for specific bands, like like a band like Despise Icon would get even like booed on stage sometimes by the death metal scene and stuff. Then for a while, it felt like it was better, but then with the huge rise of like Jump for Cowboy and Suicide, then it went back to okay, deathcore is this thing. So it always felt like it was trying to find its footing in a way, maybe like it didn't really, it was between two scenes. But I feel like from you guys perspective and a lot of bands, it was just maybe it didn't feel that way because you were so close to, I would say, death metal and more of just like heavy extreme music that you just felt like, oh, that's cool, this tour or that tour. It didn't feel like, oh my god, is this new thing and people were complaining, right? It just felt like, oh, cool, more and more bands and it's great. That, at least that's what I'm understanding. It didn't feel like people were kind of upset or anything.
Yeah, I mean, at least from my perspective, at least in the early 2000s, everything kind of didn't wasn't born from the hardcore scene, but the hardcore scene was kind of a nice foundation for these people to be able to go out and play these shows. So I think by that time hardcore had so many different subgenres and looks and styles that by the time this blend came together, people were all about it. I never received
That's
any
cool.
sort of hate for it.
It's cool to hear though.
Well, what about like inhales? Same kind of thing. Was there any hate on the inhales?
No, I mean, the thing is that, right, I'm going to be 40. So I'm from the generation that was half in the internet, half in reality. Right. And so, and I know myself, all too well. I try not to, spend my time reading the
Yeah,
footnotes
you're not on Lambgoat and Reddit every day.
it's brutal on there. I'll pop in every once in a while. It's a terrible time. It's just it's not a good time. Fuck. God forbid you do anything, right? So yeah, I mean, my experience at least was you know was pleasant. And obviously, I would go into some shows, like when we played with Devourment, you know what I mean? I was like, in my head, I'm like, all right, like, at least again, from my opinion, we're a hardcore band, right? And we're gonna show them how hardcore kids do this shit. And it was a great response, and everybody was fucking friendly. So, yeah.
That's cool, man. Can you kind of talk about recording that first Misericordiam EP in your parents' house?
Yeah. So, um, first of all, shout out to Keil from Starfucker. He actually was the one that recorded that album. We did a little bit at his apartment, and then we did, I think, the rest of it. Mostly my vocals ended up being at my parents' house. I recorded the vocals in my parents' bathroom. Yeah. And it was like this little, I mean, I'm still an idiot. You think after, almost 20 years of this shit that, I would figure out what things are and how they work. But my understanding is like, little fucking 4-track banger, whatever. And it was just plug and play. And yeah, it was a good time. We were just excited to be like, holy shit, we're going to have someone that, actually listens to our kind of music, record our stuff. So it was a good time. Yeah. So it took place between Keil's apartment and then my parents' house.
No angry neighbors. Parents fine with the yelling. I'm assuming you were already yelling in the first
So
place, but
so my parents have a really old house, like not very old because houses on the East Coast are older, but on the West Coast, my parents have a house from the 60s. And it's like a ranch style home. So it's a 1-story. So there's literally one side of their house, and then like the kid's side or whatever, they had converted the garage into a big room. And so that's where I did most of my fuckery, right? So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, my
They
dad
couldn't
was
hear
my
it
dad was
purify, yeah.
my dad was tired. My dad was tired from work. He wasn't coming out to enter the house unless he had to, and so yeah, he, you know, the noise really wasn't an issue. You know, the house was big enough and had enough open space that the neighbors weren't going to hear it. So
Yeah, yeah. And
It's
then
mind blowing. It's still sorry, Dom,
no,
but
go
it's
for it. Yeah.
still to me because I was listening to it, you know, prior to that, and it sounds great. Like at least to me, I love like raw production and stuff like that.
yeah,
It still sounds mean and really raw and good, at least to me. So that's the mind, especially you know, in what 2000 semi crazy 2006,
Four,
four,
of the five, the first one.
five.
4 or 5, I want to say.
Maybe I'm thinking of the other one though. Maybe I'm thinking
Mm.
of the one after. But like anyway, anything I heard was really raw and good so far.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing it was that. But it's you know, not to switch gears too much, but like there's something about just since there's no other input or whatever, it's just you guys going as raw and heavy as you can, and I think you can feel that and hear that. That's personally what I latch on to, especially in a world where now there's so much, you know, process and
and
stuff.
I wish I could tell you that that's what we were going for. You know what I mean? I can tell you that, you know, each time we went back in to record, I think we knew a little bit more about the music than we did from the previous album. So with the very first release with Keil, I mean, I don't think we had any fucking clue what it was going to sound like. None.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But I'm the more I think about it, because like the other one sounds absolutely like the 2006, like it's just like what's happening. But again, I'm no reference. I love EPs and demos. Everybody knows that. Like I'm all about it. But I think that's the main reason. I think as you just said it, you said like, oh, I don't think we were aiming for that. Yeah, but it was so real and just you giving everything you've got with what you had that I think you can hear it is, and that's cool.
Yeah, that's where we agree, man. You know, I am that person, and it's not because I'm difficult or edgy or trying to be cool. I usually bounce after a band's demo or first release. You know what I mean? Something happens to them, right? Something happens that I don't agree with. You know, that where they go a direction musically, you know, and you know, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like there is something about the beginning stages of a band where they're just kind of free to do shit, you know, without expectation, and it just comes out fucking awesome.
Mm.
Exactly, you know, and it's mind blowing. Like again, not to go back on the generation thing, but nowadays it's like they're 14 and like the tools are so there that it's like they sound like they're signed to a label like right right off the bat, like with their first, like they released like their first single and it sounds like it was released by a big label. But back then you really had to figure it out, you know, like it was much less accessible too, right? So
I think, you know, big picture, I think this generation of musicians have had massive amounts of surveillance bestowed upon them. They've always had someone looking at them. And so what I think that they have gained just by virtue of growing up in this being their immediate culture, um, is being prepared, right? They can look back at history, they can see what someone did, what someone didn't do, right? And now they can be like, all right, now we got this list of things that we want to do. We want the drums triggered, right? We want it to sound mechanical like Meshuggah, right? We want to use this particular, you know, digital effect on our guitar. Like they've spent time thinking about it, and which is fine, right? Our thinking was just different. I'm not saying you're not thinking about the music now, but that's where all of our energy was going, was simply, hey, how are we going to do this? You know, not how is it going to sound after you record it? You know, I mean, how are we going to, you know, how are we going to, you know, fit these sounds together and make it sound like?
I mean, to give I guess the producer some credit, I guess, like it's pretty crazy music to just try and make good. right? There are things that are a lot simpler to make not sound like shit. So there is that, right? Like it turned out really cool considering how fucking extreme it is and kind of just the ways of whatever you guys had access to, right?
Sure. Well, with our very first, with the 10 Days in Catalina, the one that was recorded at my house in the apartment, Keil was in the craziest fucking bands. When I was coming up, he played in a band called Weirding Way. All right. And Keil is no joke when it comes to drums either. This fucking dude is a machine as well. So I think, that also helped as well. Right. It maybe wasn't his style of heavy music, but he had the ear for it. You know what I mean? And I think that definitely did help out a lot.
Also mentioned, not to go back too much, but you said, it was pretty funny. You said like, except I had no talent when you were like really young and stuff like that. Like, was that because like, you're known for like your technical abilities in that band, you know what I mean? Like it's super incredible. So like, what was kind of the gap in between of just like you working like super hard to get to that, or did you just have time and it came naturally and it's just like you were at that kind of level as you were recording?
Well, I mean, I'll let you know a little secret. I'm never satisfied. I'm not. I don't think. You'll very rarely hear me say, "Oh, I did good today. I sound good today." That's usually something that one of my pals or my bandmates will say to me, right? I can tell you, um, everything has been hard. Everything. Okay. I wasn't able just to pick up the mic, right, and do it, right? There's plenty of people who've been able to do that. Hats off to them. Um, there are plenty of people that are so prepared when they go to record, they know exactly what they're going to do. That's not fucking me. Okay. I struggle with attention deficit disorder and OCD. So, I'm kind of this big, disjointed, jumbled fucking mess. And so, composing, easy, because I can be free, right? But you stick me in a fucking studio booth, right? You give me time constraints. It's going to be a miserable time for me, So I think it's because of those things that I know how hard it is to do what I see other musicians do, very easily. Um, you know, I wouldn't say it's a lack of confidence, but I think it's humbled me enough to realize that this is no easy feat for me. There's a lot of work, that it entails, and that's why there's been, there's been, big gaps because I've already been there where, I've released things that weren't 100% right. Now I'm taking a page from, the new generation. Let's be a little bit more prepared. But even then, it's still going to be, a pretty crazy task to get me back into that recording booth and get this thing done. Which, if I didn't allude to it already, might as well tell everybody, Misericordiam is going to release a new EP.
That's gonna break the internet. I think just that it's insane.
It's cool. It's a lot of it's all kind of the old members too, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah. So, it's right now it's me on vocals, David on guitar, and then Phil on drums. So yeah, all original members.
That's badass. Dude, Phil is a fucking beast, dude. I don't know how he does it. He plays guitar too, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah, he's an incredibly talented musician. He can do anything. He can sing. He can play guitar. Never seen him play bass. I'm sure if he picked it up, it's a couple less strings on the guitar. Sure, I'm sure he could do that as well. Um, he plays drums, obviously, really well. So yeah, it's we've known each other for more than half our lives now, so it's been a good time.
That's pretty crazy. And not to put you on the spot, but you just mentioned that for you was kind of it's a big thing, right? Like to record and to do something like that. Like, was that because I'm guessing after after a while? Was that a different approach for you, like now knowing everything you know, and was that like kind of a different mindset, or it's still as challenging maybe because you know you have to be in that headspace again?
It's still challenging. There's, a lot of, I mean, um, it's easier for me to get ready for a fight and get into a ring and fight someone than it is for me to like do all the things I need to do to make sure, I'm ready to record. It's because I don't, my personality doesn't operate in time constraints and you have to be done at this time. I mean, I'm like a diesel engine, it takes me a while to get warmed up and get comfortable, and, I'm going to fuck up a lot. And so, but usually in the end makes for good music. But definitely the behind the scenes shit really, it's really troubling. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, though, first of all, I feel like it adds a layer of like realness, and it shows that obviously you do it for the right reasons. I mean, if you go through that every single time and you still want to do music, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people would be like, you know what, I like it, but it's
maybe
it's
I don't
too
like
much.
this music thing so
Well,
much.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
would say in anything that you do, there's probably going to be some aspect that isn't your favorite, and you're right. I mean, yeah, there's some things I'll take from the past, looking now and going, okay, I can prepare a little bit better. And, um, you know, I just want to make music, that's all I want to do, whether it's who knows if it's for the right reason. I guess that's all subjective. All I can tell you is that, now I feel good about it, and, and I'm ready to go. So, we should be entering the studio with our buddy Jonas, who's the guitar player for Roman Candle. We should be going into the recording studio with him, I believe, the second week of August. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
real soon.
Yeah. About 6 weeks out.
Can we, to kind of linger on that, what was kind of the impetus behind getting back together? I know there's there was the Wax Vessel release that came out a few years ago. Was that kind of a part of getting back the band together? Were you guys already talking? Like what kind of happened to get the boys writing again?
I'd say I think the Wax Vessel thing, happened first. We had this opportunity, which, to kind of get our stuff out there. And then, we got together and said, hey, you guys want to just get together and just try just practicing our old songs and just fucking around. And that was terrible for all of us. we felt old as fuck. No, but we had a good time, and I think that's really what it was, right? We have a good time, and let's maybe try, writing some stuff. And the time wasn't right, and that's really all I can explain. Now things have aligned themselves to where we're like, yeah, this seems like the right thing to do. The time is now. And maybe that's why we never went as far as people think we should have went. I don't want to just be releasing shit to release it.
What was it that kind of aligned to really get it going, like the second time or whatever? Just scheduling, or just where you guys were in your lives? Like, what was the...
I mean, what stopped it was life. You know what I mean? There's 6 kids between us, right? Whether it's facing, financial, problems, marital problems, raising children. That was, it wasn't in the way, because that's life. We're parents. Those are things we have to do, right? And we're also adults, right? But, unfortunately, there wasn't going to be enough time to etch out to kind of do this thing, And you got to understand something, too, is that, like, and anyone that's done music, you guys know, you hang out with 3, 4, 5 people every day over the course of your life. You're going to disagree, right? You're going to hyper focus on maybe the things you don't like about that person, right? not realizing that maybe you have some of those things in you as well. I mean, I would say that, us being fucking crazy is probably the reason why we gravitated towards music. It's also our Achilles heel. So, we're gonna have disagreements. We're gonna have arguments, and we're gonna motherfuck each other. But, with time heals all. You know what I mean? And now we got, maturity on our side, and there was nothing big that happened. It just didn't happen. And now it is. I wish I had some, grand answer for you, but it just me and Phil got talking, and we're like, this feels good. Let's fucking do this.
I mean, that's the best case scenario, though. I mean, I rather that for an answer than anything else. Like that's just things aligning. That's just like, that's just like timings and priorities, and not some big like drama thing.
It could have came at a crazier time too, because most of the time I'm sitting in my house doing nothing, sitting in silence, decompressing. Right? When Misericordiam decided to do this next release, when me and Phil were discussing it, I had already started another band. I have a band right now with the original guitar player from Molotov Solution. David from Misery is also in it. He's also the original guitar player from Molotov Solution. Then you have fucking Matt Mancuso, who's the original drummer for Molotov Solution. And then, our buddy Jose, who had this fucking wild surf rock band called Leather Lungs. They're bass players now in a band called Hiss. I think they're out of LA. They're sick as fuck. So, I mean, I had already, started, delving into music again. And then when this happened, I'm like, well, fuck, I guess I'm going to be busy because,
yeah.
I guess
it's all or nothing, man. That's just how life works.
Yeah.
That's cool though, man. Is that other thing still like a thing? Is that a thing that's being worked on?
Yeah. We're definitely serious about it. It's, it's heavy, but it's different from Misery, and we're having a good time. And really, I can't ask for more.
Yeah. But that's fucking awesome. Just knowing the people involved. That's a cool thing. You and Molotov kind of go all the way fucking back, right?
Yeah. When they came out with Path to Extinction, it blew my fucking mind. Now you understand that, like, I had known, we had all known Robbie before from a band called Mordor, and they were a local band, and they were fucking nuts, dude. They were fucking nuts, and it's completely chaotic. So when I had heard that Robbie was joining Molotov, and keep in mind, Matt was also the drummer for Without Prayer. So Matt was going between Without Prayer and Molotov in their early incarnation. And so when, me and Robbie would be at a party drinking together, and he's telling about his ideas for what he wants to do with Molotov, and then hearing it on Path to Extinction, it blew my fucking mind. So yeah, I mean, we've been side by side pretty much, this entire time.
We had Nick on a little while ago, and he was talking to us about you guys being in the studio at the same time with Tim Lambesis.
Oh yeah. So I don't know when they were there. What had happened was Misery,
like a descend into nothingness type thing. So
yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. If it wasn't obvious.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll tell you that story. So I don't know when Molotov was there, but we had, Misery had gotten back together. Not all original members. We had written some stuff, and we went out to Lambesis Studios, and recorded it. And I ended up blowing my voice out. and I, I was not too happy. Of course, there comes in my lack of being prepared.
Yeah.
My nervousness, and I blew it, and I thought I was done singing. There was also this kind of thing too that, like, since it wasn't all original members, was this what misery is supposed to be? Is this like what we're supposed to give to the world, right? None of it was bad, at all. It was, it was good shit. But was it, what misery was supposed to release next? And so maybe things, happened as they should. And I mean, now here we are. I thought I was never singing again, and now we're writing new shit. So to answer Nick's question, because I think he asked it a couple of days ago, is that shit getting released? No, Nick, it's not getting released.
I think he already knew the answer to that question.
Okay,
but yeah.
okay. It's not getting released.
It is crazy to think, though, that, like, theoretically speaking, that there's like a version of this Misericordiam album that exists, albeit with, I guess, just without vocals. Like, was everything else kind of done on that album?
Yeah. And so, when my voice started getting better again, I thought, should I go and I finish the album? It just didn't feel right. You know what I mean? I just, remember, anytime there's a recording, I can hear every fuck up. I can hear every time the fucking guitar is not panned correctly. I can hear every time I wish I would have done something better, right? So taking a page from the new crowd, I'd like to be a little bit more prepared and also feel 100% of what I'm putting out into the world. And I think that, like, this next release coming out is going to be as close as I can get to that.
Sometimes also it's like it's hard to explain because it's just you don't feel it too. It's just like you just know deep inside that's not, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes, and it was a great explanation. I just mean, like, I think it's better not to release it if you feel like that, as opposed to just like, well, it's there.
Way too many bands just put things out that they kind of shouldn't have. And I don't even necessarily mean like music. Like, sometimes it's as stupid as, like, you did a photo shoot, or for me personally, look, I've two music videos that we scrapped because we're like, nah, we can't because we put one out that we regretted down the line. We're like, nah, we're not doing that again. So there's always like these kind of things and I mean, to kind of circle back to what you said early out, that shit stays on the internet. That shit doesn't go away.
Yeah, I mean, good enough for me. Like, I don't want to do any of that shit. If we're going to do a music video, my face is going to be all fucking fuzzy. Not going to be able to tell it's me. I don't want to take fucking band pictures.
Filmed in the dark.
It's just, it's a crazy fucking place, man. It's fucking nuts out there.
You know what? You would probably kill it in the video, though, like, knowing, because you do, martial art and stuff, and you're a fighter. Like, I'm pretty sure you could do something pretty sick, though, if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm picturing this.
No, I mean, and keep in mind, my ego has definitely, thought about those things, but then I'm like, holy fuck, man. I really want to dedicate like 4 minutes to me. I mean, I think the world already has a fucking enough me. You know what I'm saying? So, which is obviously why, to me, the music is the most important. So I hope that's what resonates with people.
I mean, well, I was just gonna say real quick though, you on the topic of everything living forever on the internet, there was a time where Misericordiam was like kind of just not on the internet. You guys bought the rights back to some of that music around was that all kind of around the Wax Vessel release? So it eventually kind of popped up on Spotify and stuff, but that wasn't the case for a minute.
Yeah, so we didn't have to buy anything back. I just had simple conversations like, I guess I'll say it now, like, Nick Bygone, thank you for everything you ever did for us. Jihad from 12 Gauge, fucking thank you for everything you did for us. Wax Vessel, has done a huge thing by getting our music out there. Thank you for that. But, there wasn't, we didn't have to really buy anything back. It just, we had simple conversations with these people, and, Jihad just relinquished it, right? I talked to Wax Vessel. We have our mechanical rights, right? That was a simple fucking conversation I had with him. So, I got no bad blood with anybody, and I try to be I try to appreciate the things that people do for me as much as possible. And so any lack of us being on the internet was probably because there was some downtime between it transferring from them to us. And then also us just kind of living our lives and not thinking about this.
Yeah. I didn't even mean it. I don't even see buying music back as a negative thing, if anything, even if you had paid for it or whatever.
Sure.
That wouldn't have been, it's just more so the fact that, like, if you don't own it, then you can't put it up online if it's not online. That's just it's just the simple thing, right? So it was just cool to see that the music came back up. I just mentioned this because there's so much music from back in the day that isn't on streamers, and therefore I've got a bunch of fucking music on my hard drives from back in the day, the glory days of Blogspot and all this stuff. I would download the living shit out of everything and rip songs off of MySpace, even if it was a demo or some shit. But a lot of that stuff is just gone now, right? You just literally can't listen to it online unless you were like a crackhead like me back in the day. So it's it was cool. All that to say, it's cool to see that, like, stuff like Misericordiam is like up online, because that's the type of stuff that could have just been gone forever,
I mean, I'm obviously benefiting from the opposite of the argument I'm about to make, but maybe some things just need to be sacred. Maybe no, seriously, maybe some things just need to be listened to back then, and you get to have that for yourself, and the next person doesn't. It's not gatekeeping. It's just, maybe that's just the way things fucking work out. Some shit's gonna get streamed, some shit isn't, and if you weren't there, find a bootleg copy, or try to find someone who has it, which I wish the fucking prices for our shit was not what it is. It actually fucking disgusts me.
Right. So that's kind of the thing. I wouldn't have a problem with your argument if some of that money went to the band, but that's not the case. So and it doesn't. And it doesn't. We've dealt with a couple of bootleggers, which, by the way, I had no fucking clue this shit went back into the 90s. Okay, like, so it was kind of a new thing when I found out about it. There's this guy, Jolly Roger Tapes or whatever. He did a run of our stuff. I was kind of like, what the fuck's going on here? That popped up not too long ago, right?
No, that's the second guy. So Jolly Roger, I actually talked to this dude, and he told me his mission statement. He's like, listen, dude, I'm just simply trying to get music out there for people who would never have access. I said, you know what, dude, that's sick. Go ahead. He sent me a box of Misericordiam shit, and then I got hammered at a show and just gave it out for free. Yeah.
As one does, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta really make sure you're not making a dime off this shit.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. I mean, I think, look, to me, I guess my thing with, like, bootlegs and stuff like that, it's kind of just, you gotta have that conversation first, right? If anything, to me, that's just kind of like a respect thing, if anything.
Well, I think,
because the bands have no way of knowing the intentions. The person has no way of knowing if the band is even okay with it. That thing that you just said, maybe something should just be left to die. Yeah, maybe that shirt design or that cassette or that whatever was just meant to die in your mind, and it's your band and it's your music, right? So it's just, I don't know. There just has to be like something mutual going on at the very least. But
well, I mean, I think you got two different types of listeners of music, right? People who just, well, let's just say like everybody else. And then there's another group of people that feel entitled, right? They feel entitled to what you can offer them, right? Mm-hmm. I don't give one solitary fuck if you wrote it. I don't care what you had to go through. I don't care what you lost. I don't care what kind of blowback you got from whatever you have. I fucking want, therefore I'm going to make sure I get it, and it's just, but there's people like that in every facet of life, Yeah. But you're right. I wish there would at least be a conversation, because I've said it 1,000 times. Okay. This isn't a fucking cash grab for me. All right. I've never made a substantial amount of money off the band, minus, what we got from Wax Vessel. It served its fucking purpose, and now that money's fucking gone, so I'm resuming work as normal, right? There was no time off because of my music.
Retire,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing though, because like the part that to me kind of sucks is that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are under the impression that some of it are going to the band. You know what I mean? Like when they support or whatever, they don't necessarily know. People are just like going for, oh, it's cool. You know what I mean? Or sometimes things are getting released and they think it's the band, and it's not. Like it's this whole kind of misunderstanding.
One would assume as much, but.
Yeah, I'm just saying people usually don't. Most people, like seriously, I think it's even fair to say most people don't even know really what's going on. They're just like, oh, that's cool. Like few people are gonna be like, oh, actually, it's not. Most people are just gonna think it's the band. You know what I mean? So it can create confusion pretty easily, is what I'm.
And I think that's where kind of like I said, like the two camps split, right? I mean, you have people who are listening to a particular artist for their fucking ideas. Right. So in my head, if Circle of Dead Children was making a T-shirt, I want their thought in it, right? Because that's what I'm fucking supporting, right? What are they going for? What's the message they're trying to send, if fucking any? Oh, also, by the way, they need to fucking eat and probably feed their kids, right? So all those things kind of fucking tie into why I would want to support a band, and you're right. There's no. I have to charge my phone in a second here. Grab my charger.
Yeah, you're good.
But there's no. I think the world's so disconnected now that I think people don't realize that the power of a dialogue, of a conversation. I think if you were to talk to people, then you might find out some new shit, but you also might hear a lot of what you want to hear as well, right? So I don't know. It's crazy times, but I'm here for it. I know the game's changing, and I'm just gonna kind of go with it.
Yeah, I feel it's a good perspective, but it's also like, sure, maybe you won't get the answer you wanted, but the cool thing is usually when at least you try or whatever, like you have a lot of chances that you might not get exactly what you wanted, but maybe something halfway, something that makes sense for both parties or whatever. So like
Sure.
I feel like people underestimate the value of like those kinds of relationships and connections as
Sure.
opposed to a direct short-term result, maybe. Like sometimes it's, to me at the very least, I much rather have like just good terms, like good relationships and stuff like that.
Sure.
Even if maybe what I wanted didn't work on the spot, but like over time though, maybe we're going to be able to do something together, something else, or whatever. So I feel like maybe people underestimate what they can get instead.
Yeah, it's the entitlement thing that Nick was alluding to. You're just not entitled, right?
Yeah,
I wonder where that stems from. It's kind of like, does music have no value because it's on Spotify? Like, is that a part of that equation, or is that just, is that just for everything? Is it just a music thing? Like, I don't know.
I'll do it because I can type thing too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's some of that sometimes. People are just like, well, why not? You know what I mean? Like, there's not much thought. Maybe it's just, oh, let's, without it being, I'm not trying to defend, but I feel like a lot of people are just like, oh, like, there's just like no thought, just like, oh, I'm going to do that, So I think there's that as well.
I think it's twofold. I think one, right, with the advent of social media or where that is now, it keeps people disconnected, right? That's one. But then, we also got to understand that majority of these people are kids, right? So I was a fucking idiot, not really thinking many things through, and maybe there isn't much thought. Maybe they're not going in deep into the issue as much as we wish that they would. You know what I mean? Maybe that comes with maturity. I don't fucking know. I don't know if these are full-grown men, but if they're, if they're younger, then maybe they're just, not thinking it through. They just like the band. They want to support. They think they're supporting the band by by getting the stuff out there and keeping all the money, whatever. It's and maybe, the thing is, I'm not looking at their books. Maybe whatever dollar they make goes right back into it so they can do another run for somebody else. So maybe there's really no money that they're obtaining from. I just think that it would be nice in a perfect world that if people want to bootleg, that they would, at least talk to the people that create music. That's all.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of dabble into the two other albums, because we didn't really talk much about those. Like, I feel like there was, obviously there was like some progression stylistically with the two other albums, both kind of leaning heavier and heavier, for both. Was that again just like you guys doing your thing, or was there like kind of a goal to like kind of level it up every time?
I think it was organic and what we were listening to. But I do remember, this is a good thing. Phil was, I mean, when Unanimity came out, like Phil was like really fucking driven, right? It wasn't about it was about testing himself, And if you listen to those drum licks, I mean, holy fucking shit! Like this, it's just unreal. And I remember him, just kind of coming in with this energy, That's one thing that I think that stuck out to me. Like when we were doing Unanimity was his energy and what he wanted to deliver from everyone. That was a huge driving force for all of us. But as far as like the writing went, it was just all five of us in a room, 2 to 3 days a week, just smoking a bunch of weed and kind of figuring out, what we were, how we were going to, how we were going to do the next thing. I don't know if there was never like a conversation, we're going to stop doing this and start doing this. It just kind of just happened,
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Because the last one was definitely more like there's less, like noticeably less like breakdowns and more just kind of straight into a faster, more brutal death kind of vibe, which, again, it already was, and kind of the death grind thing, it had kind of always been. But I felt like some of the early, specifically like the metalcore influences from like, let's say the EP mostly, were kind of out of the picture in the last one, right? It was like kind of just straight to the point, balls to the wall, going crazy from 9 to 5,
Yeah. Like I said, Phil was a huge driving force for that album, and he was progressing at a rate which was just insane, and we were just all trying to keep up, and that's how those that's
so I just had to,
and obviously we were listening to copious amounts of fucking devourment then too. That's probably where like the ideas for the heavier riffs came in. But one of the cool things was there was less breakdowns, right? Which me, the hardcore kid, would love tons and tons of breakdowns. But there was less breakdowns. But the breakdown at the end of Insomnia was just a fucking feel moment. It was like when there was a ring out or whatever, and Cody just started playing it, and we're all just like looking at each other going, "Oh shit, are we gonna do this right now?" And then we fucking went into it, and we had the fuck moment, and that's I was actually
sweeter. Yeah.
I was actually talking to Cassidy, who's in my new band, who's the original guitar player from Molotov, and that breakdown at the end of Myth of Human Progress, that was one of those moments for them too. Like I think he'd accidentally like put on the effect that made the sound go lower and lower, and then they just hit, and they're like, "Holy fuck!" So yeah, it's like, I'm sure bands have moments like that all the time, but that was one kind of cool thing about From a Thin Line to Unanimity, that you're right, it was more straightforward, trying to be a little bit more intense, but those breakdowns were there, and they came naturally.
Yeah. We can kind of start landing the plane here. I did want to kind of talk about, while we were on the topic of the two albums, can you kind of talk to us about your relationship with Lovejuice? Because both of those were recorded there, right? How was it recording there? I know for you, strenuous in general, but was that like a cool thing going to an actual studio?
It was so fun. You know, Molotov kind of had like more direction. You know what I mean? They had more of an idea like of how to actually do this shit and get shit done. So we kind of followed their lead. So they went to Lovejuice, we went to Lovejuice, and being a 17-year-old knucklehead, I haven't really been strayed far from home. So here I am with a bunch of my friends with no money, making music, smoking a bunch of weed and smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, while recording the music that we fucking wrote together. So Lovejuice was awesome. I mean, I remember, I think her name was Donna, and we roll up to the recording studio because it's at her house. So the recording studio's in her backyard, like in these like casitas and stuff like that they had built.
Yeah.
And she didn't fucking know who the fuck we were, and like we roll in there, and like she kind of jumps out like this, and it was on. She was just cool as shit, and yeah, it was a great time for a lot of reasons. One, because it was our first time in a recording studio. We're away from home, no parental supervision whatsoever, and that's probably why I got the idea to say all that crazy shit on the thin line. Because
your parents were just far enough they couldn't give you a tap behind the head.
Yeah. So it was it was a great
garage,
time.
A little bit with your parents there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking before, like while you were, kind of coming back with the audio and everything, which album we preferred, and I would have guessed, but for him, he's more technical and stuff, so the third album. But I have to say, for me, this one, like 10, is just, like the 2006 one is just the production on that, the fact that you go from freaking a slam part, like straight up hardcore riffs, big NLs, breakdown. It's everything I love in the production. So it's blowing my mind that you guys released that in freaking 2006 though, because it's something that maybe we heard a little afterward, but in 2006, if I recall, to have such a big blend, like the only other band I have in mind close to that would be the Spice Icon, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like that I could say went from hardcore to
Sure.
for like very well. But like you hear that now and it makes sense, and I'm sure people from the revival would be like, oh, it's great, but it's blowing my mind in 2006 to blend so many things, to go from real hardcore, that's a rare thing. It's straight up hardcore, real hardcore.
Well, I feel like, you guys should probably have the answer for me. I don't know what the fuck is in your guys' drinking water, but I mean, every fucking band that comes out of where you guys are from is just insane. And so if, I mean, Despised Icon were the top dogs back then, and really cool people as well. I think we played with them once, and I mean, I don't know. There were like already like metal melodic hardcore bands out and shit, but like more like the Swedish metal with breakdowns.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of just something that we wanted to blend together. Whether that was because we were vibing off what one of our contemporaries were doing, or it just felt right, or what we had been listening to. But I mean, each one of the members, kind of, brought something in different, right? Like I said, I learned how to sing through Earth Crisis. Phil, fuck, man, he came up on, King Diamond and fucking Phil Collins, and I mean, then you got, David, who, wrote a lot of metal, but also wrote like a lot of indie shit. And same thing with Chris Beck's our bass player. He's strictly from the fucking indie scene. He's doing like solo acoustic shit now. Cody and me, the other guitar player, Like we really bonded over the hardcore and the breakdown. So I just think that like all of us coming together is kind of like, you know, how you got the music on the same line.
A blend of all your influences and everything you love mixed together, basically.
Yeah, we're gonna fucking do everything. Yeah.
It worked. So there we go. Oh,
I was looking at this earlier. And I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, this fucking lineup, man. Firefest
Yeah.
2006.
Jump for a Cowboy, Elysia.
This lineup is absolutely insane. How was this show?
It was fucking crazy. You know, big ups to Dustin, you know, for being able to wrangle that many fucking bands, you know, and I mean, look at that fucking bill. You know, it's one of those things where it's like you don't understand the significance of it while it's fucking happening.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like it was just fucking business as usual. And you know, when you're that age, you know, maybe I can't speak for other people, and you know, you got fucking tunnel vision. Like, you know, you're just in the shit thinking. I mean, not that you don't care about other people, their music, but you're thinking about what you're doing and you're just going for it. And so yeah, so here I am playing with all these fucking crazy bands, and I don't even know what the fuck is in front of me. You know what I mean? Like, obviously these were bands, like all those bands on there I listened to, I liked and stuff. But as I just never saw it as a fucking whole. Like now, you know, I'm like going, holy fuck, I can't believe Dustin pulled something like that off. So
Yeah, but I think that's what makes it special, right? Like it's the fact that you don't really fully realize it as you're in it, and it's just kind of what you do that makes the nostalgia, I think. Like if the whole time you're like, oh my god, this is, you know what I mean? Like I don't think it would be. I think
there's
it's
nothing special about it if it's expected or just normal.
Yeah.
Or well, not normal, like crazy or whatever. Yeah.
and if you, I think on the bottom, if you look there, there's a band called Lynch Die Beauty. They were
There is.
they were a Vegas local band. Well, Nick Arthur, so they ended up getting two singers, and their new singer was Nick Arthur. So I can tell you, I remember where I was the first time I heard him fucking sing, right? And I was like, dude, this dude's got a mean fucking voice. And then, you know, when I found out he was in Molotov, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be fucking nuts. Then the fucking Harbinger came out, and I was actually just listening to it fucking today on my way home from work. You know, and so it's little things like that. Like those are, you know, maybe I don't remember the show and appreciate it for what it was as a whole, getting all those bands together. But it's little moments like that to know I was looking over, watching Lynch Die Beauty play, singing Nick sing in his first band for the first time. And then, you know, he took the reins of Molotov and he just fucking released a new incredible EP, you know? So it's just, it's fucking cool. It's cool.
Moment in time for sure.
The Job for a Cowboy logo in the fucking what
I
looks like a
cannot
Fortnite font is
understand.
fucking
Yeah.
insane.
I've never
no
seen
logo.
in my life Job for a Cowboy written like that, I think. Like
So
ever.
good.
Like
Yeah.
ever. And Elysia, if I'm correct, was exactly at that, like when the shows were insane and people would go crazy for Elysia. If I think 2006 must have been
2006
pretty crazy.
Right there.
Yeah, I remember when they popped up, it was just it was almost like, you know, an explosion, almost like with like Suicide Silence, right? Elysia came in and everyone's like, holy fuck. And you know, and I think their appeal, right, on top of just writing good music, was, you know, their age, you know, how young they were. You know, I don't know if you know this, but when Animosity put out their earliest shit, they were probably 14, 15 years old. So that always fucking marveled me because, you know, I was in a band when I was 15, wasn't writing fucking Animosity riffs, I can tell you that, you know, and same thing with, you know, same thing with, you know, Elysia, right? They came out real fucking heavy, dude. And he said some
huge
real
hardcore energy too, right? Like it was kind of
yeah, it didn't sound like kid music for sure.
Yeah, but one thing I respect about him is that, you know, I mean, obviously, like as a lyricist, like, right, you can write things in a flowery way. I like both. I like both camps, right? writing long flowery sentences, but then also, not leaving anything up to debate how you feel. I think Zach did that with that release. Like he let people know exactly. He didn't fucking mince words. He was as plain as fucking day. Because I think the best lyrics that resonate, right, are the things that you would say yourself. Like, for example, like you wake up, you have to work again to go, God, how am I going to get through another fucking day? Right? That's as plain as fucking day. We all feel that. We've all said it before, right? I think Zach, kind of captured that with his band, and I think that, at least to me, as a lyricist and a writer and a frontman, I think that really got them a lot of attention, a lot of good attention, and for very good reasons.
I think you're completely right, because like I'm telling you, any video that you can find anywhere of that band playing live, people are going crazy to another level. Like seriously, like throwing themselves on stage. Like sometimes he can barely hold this mic. Like there's like 20 people over him trying to sing. So you might be onto something, because like they probably felt that on such a real level too, that it was kind of adding a layer of not craziness, but intensity would be a better word at their shows. It resonated with tons of people is what I'm trying to say. So it makes a lot of
No,
sense.
I mean, you can definitely tell. Yeah, you can definitely tell from the crowd's response. Yeah, they were a band that I got really stoked on and was really impressed by. Yeah, especially when you can convey your sentiments in the most simplest ways possible, so that nothing's left up for debate. Everyone's going to know exactly how you feel. That's
Right.
Yeah, that's what I liked.
Look, I have to pull this up because it was just finally announced, but they're doing some shows, baby.
I cannot believe it. I can't believe it.
Yeah, man.
Because when I talked to him, it wasn't looking that way. It was a while back, because I make videos about MySpace era bands. I talked to him to Zach, and it really felt like he was grateful for everything, but it never sounded like they would come back like that. Like from what I heard, it was just like, oh, okay, it's a thing from. So them, I think it's gonna go just insane. Like first of all, it's gonna be full, and people are gonna be.
I love the headline: returns after short 17-year hiatus.
17.
hiatus.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Just a brief one.
That's so good.
A small
Short.
17-year gap.
Short hiatus. That's so good. Let me tell you, best believe it's gonna go crazy each show, like insanely crazy. I can
Yeah, I mean, one of those is that Arsonists Get All the Girls, Moria, Knights of the Abyss show too. So that's
what a time,
wild ass fucking lineup to be seeing in 2025.
But dude, what a time to be alive, though. Honest, like it's just insane. But yeah, the question I wanted to ask, because you mentioned Nick, right? Like seeing Nick in his powerful voice and stuff like that. I was just wondering for you, with like this whole, doesn't have to be deathcore, but since we're on the topic, I keep bringing up Mitch Lucker, right? Every single interview, because he's like, it's still my inspiration to this day. And to me, was like the best frontman ever. But for you, in terms of like, because you saw so many great bands live, right? You're playing shows and stuff like that. Do you recall like which one maybe not necessarily impressed you, but like maybe inspired you a little bit or influenced you during that time?
Would you say like someone who's like my contemporary that was playing music around the same time I was, or like an older band?
I mean, it could be both. Like my question, I guess, was more like you were touring with all those crazy upcoming bands, maybe in that bands, like who maybe stood out, or also your influence, like both. I would be interested in both, to be fair.
So, as far as a contemporary goes, I think seeing Beneath the Masker live, and I don't know if it, yeah, I don't know if it's because I'm a short, bald, stocky dude, but short kings unite. But no, but he means what he says. He believes what he says. He's pissed when he's saying those things that he's saying. And for me, that's like, watching them, I was like, that's a real motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like he's just, he's a real motherfucker saying real things, really fucking important things. Um, and, uh, and yeah, he blew me away. Right. Um, I think I remember saying this in another interview. I'm so influenced by like the people around me. You know what I mean? Like just like the good energy I get from them. Um, we'll call it positive gamemanship, if you will. Um, a lot of like my antics live are actually a mirror image of my friend Jesse uh, Nelson, who was one of the drummers for Folsom, which is now Stu's Spirit World, right? Um, he had a band. He was a drummer for Folsom, and he played for this band, local band. They never went anywhere, but um, they released a couple of demos. They were called Bodies Burn, and he was just so fucking angry and so pissed and so intense. And he was like an older brother to me, still is. That I would watch them perform and be like, I want to be like Jesse. Like that's who I fucking want to be by. Right. So what was it? Some like, like really, really big band that like really, that I modeled myself after? Not really. Maybe I get the ethos, I'm not straight edge. Maybe I get the conviction side from Earth Crisis, but as far as like bands that like really impressed me, like they were the bands that I was touring with, the bands that I was playing with. I was just so fucking stoked to be there, right? And to be doing the thing, you know. If you were to ask me, I think someone had said it maybe in the chat, yesterday or typed in the comments, whatever. What's a band that I love playing with? I will play if Impending Doom or Brooke were to call me right fucking now and be like, dude, you're playing a show with us. I would play that fucking show. Like that for me, like as far as one of my contemporaries, like that is a band that I will play whatever show whatever they want me to. And we couldn't be completely different in our ideologies, but we all believe in something and we're both fucking convicted and we both like the right heavy music. So yeah, that would probably be the number one band to answer that question. If there was a band that I would want to play with again, it would be Impending Doom.
Which I think says a lot in terms of like because I'm hearing you talking since the beginning, and I feel like what you respect is the realness of people, no matter what. If you have the same opinion and it doesn't matter. You respect someone who's real and full of conviction. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a victim, all right, but I'm bearing my heart to people. You know what I mean? Like I am fucking. There's a story by Kafka. It's a short story. It's called The Starving Artist. It's just about a dude that sits in a fucking cage and fucking starves himself for other people to watch for their fucking amusement. I'm putting myself out there for people to fucking ridicule. I'm telling you exactly what's going on with me, how I'm feeling, what I don't like, and what I want to see change. And so when I see that in somebody else, I fucking respect it. And it just so happens that 17 fucking bands from where you guys are from just seem to be doing that over and over and over again. It's crazy.
Yeah, all pissed off about the same government. That's what it comes down to, probably.
Could make sense. could make sense. Yep, that would. Or it's the Putin, or one or the other.
One or the other. Yeah. Probably a mix of both.
Could be. No, thanks for answering that. That's what fascinates me too. Like you just hearing sometimes what because that was such an era, like all that the beginning and all those bands. You mentioned Impending Doom and stuff like that. Like I love asking that because maybe sometimes people couldn't guess that. So it's not always the most popular thing. Sometimes it's also very important bands, because we're always going to consider Impending Doom to be crucial in the history of of deathcore and heavy music in general. But it's cool to hear, you know, kind of credit for these bands and like that. So
You know, one little secret you probably wouldn't know, you know, is that I wouldn't say it's attributed to me coming back, but there is like a community of singers out there that have like reached out to me, you know, and like you know, we're friends, you know what I mean? And we talk about music and we talk about vocal patterns and vocal styles and what we're listening to, and we're listening to each other's projects and bouncing back and forth. And you know, there's some really good people out there in the music scene. I'm not saying that the vast majority of people don't care, but what I'm telling you from my experience recently, there's a huge group of people out there that want to see other artists do well. Um, you know, Jared from Suffocate, right? The original singer from Suffocate, he's one of them, right? He's always just been around, you know, been my biggest supporter. My homie Azarade Nakamura. I don't know if you guys have heard like Esophagus or Blood Crusher.
Oh,
Um, Dude, Azarate is no fucking joke, man. He is probably he's probably my favorite vocalist right now. Uh, the lows at this, and they're all outs. It's insane. He's like doing lows that you think you can only achieve by doing an inhale, and he's doing them all outs. And it's, if you want to get a good example of how fucking good this guy is, listen to the song "Baghead" by Blood Crusher. It's fucking unreal. Like if you were to watch him separated from the music, like if he were just to call you and show you like what he can do, it's just fucking remarkable.
Mm.
So like that's another cool thing that's happened over the last couple of years is that, you know, uh, I think this has all been people's plan, right, to kind of get me out of my fucking hole and maybe create again, maybe for their own selfish reasons. No, I really think that they probably actually care a lot about me, and I care about them. And so that's one of the real cool things that, you know, I didn't know what friends I had in the music community, because you forget sometimes when you go off and you start your family and you just go to working every day, you forget. And so there's definitely been people that have came from the past and new people that have really made the transition back into doing this again a lot easier.
That's really cool to hear. I'll
Yeah,
just
it's
say
awesome to
that,
hear,
like that's
really.
because I think that's I don't know, it must for sure help with the kind of imposter syndrome of, is anyone gonna give a fuck about this in 2025, or me, regardless of even the band, just like me in general in 2025 when it comes to making music and stuff like that. So it's cool to, I mean, look, it's kind of why we do what we do here, right? Like it's the, you know, it's just connecting with people and have these conversations, and to share love for the music that, you know, we're all fans of like similar things, if not the same thing, right? And it's those relationships I think that really kind of, I don't know, they make it worth it ultimately. Like I don't want to make this about me, so I'll do it super quick. But for me, you know, used to play music, stopped playing music, and that was my biggest thing for a minute, was like, okay, what, like you kind of feel like you lose this entire community of people that, you know, you kind of always rely on and have good times with. And so I kind of I relate with that part of it, of, you know, being able to find friendship through music and stuff like that. It's cool to hear you have that again, I guess, you know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, when you're in a band and people like it, right, you got all the friends in the world, and then you stop being that person, right? Maybe periodically, and you go down a different path, and a lot of those people disappear. So you can get jaded, you know, and you can lose your identity. But so to know that, you know, there are people who have nothing to gain, because I mean, look, they're amazing musicians in their own right. They've already done the fucking thing 10 times over. You know, they're doing this out of the goodness of their heart, simply because, you know, they value my existence as a fucking human being, you know? And so it's nice to know that I was fucking wrong, right? There are people out there that care about me, right? You know, it might not be at the level at what it was, but that's all fucking ego, you know. And so, so you know, I mean, it's good to know that there's, you know, that there's a future in this for me. I didn't think there was going to be.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. Well, dude, I think that'd be kind of a great place to leave it at. Honestly, only because we're running long on time. Because there's a lot more that we didn't tap into that we could have talked about. So I'm gonna say it now. I want a part two. You know, if we're talking about some new music and stuff like that, we gotta figure something out. if you'll accept.
Yeah, if we didn't, if we gave a good impression.
No, for sure. I'd love to come back. I'd just like to end on three things.
Go for it.
Yes, there will be a fucking album. 2, you'll get your fucking precious t-shirts. Give me some time. And 3, to everybody, please, guys, just be good to each other. If you ever listen to one fucking thing I said, ever in my life, and you care about my opinion, please be fucking good to people. This world is, it's fucking crashing. And we need to do something before we don't have those fucking rights that we love so much anymore. So be well, guys. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely appreciate you, man. We'll have to keep in touch. All right.
All right, brother. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Peace out, my man.
Later.
If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you for watching. And hey, while you're here, hit that subscribe or follow button and a review. If you're watching or listening on a podcast platform, it would mean the world and it helps out more than you know. A big thank you as well to all of our supporters over on Patreon and on Twitch. New episodes every week, links to our Patreon, Discord, and socials in the description. We'll see you soon. We're out.